Grab your coffee and get ready because today we are diving deep into a case that you likely haven't heard of. But due to its shocking nature, it's hard to understand why there's so little information and how few actually know of it. That's right, today we'll be talking about the tragic death of model and former Los Angeles Raiders cheerleader Linda Sobek. So let's take to the notes. Linda was born on July 9th in 1968, and much like the other cancers you may know, she's said to be a very compassionate and sensitive person. There is almost nothing known about her life prior to her death, which just makes this case even more odd. Every article you find or video you watch on her only really speaks about her death and highlights its brutality. But obviously, she had a lot going for her. She had great looks, brains, and a career that was taking off quickly. She was said to be a born-again Christian and had booked some serious modeling jobs as well as short appearances on Married with Children. Her friends say if she hadn't talked to you in a few days, she would drop a card in the mail just because. Unfortunately, due to the lack of information on her upbringing, we do have to jump right to the day, November 15th, 1995, when Linda was just 27 years old, living in Hermosa Beach, California. That day, Linda called her mother, Elaine, to tell her about a new audition that she was up for. At this point in her career, she really only had dabbled in the auditions for television, but really was known for modeling. This, however, was a TV audition for a show, so she was excited to be branching out. As many of you know from my other cases, the standards for the industry were different then. Many things weren't done through management or agents. Often it was photographers just offering to shoot for free in a trade for print style. And though this audition was very legitimate, she did not tell her mother about another gig that she had taken right before she was set to go on this TV audition. She didn't think much of it and probably planned to catch her mother up to speed when they got together the coming weekend. Linda did change her voicemail that day to let people know that she had taken a last-minute modeling job and would be out. Chilling Crimes says that Elaine knew something was wrong when she didn't hear from her daughter after the shoot before her next audition. So she reported her as a missing person and took the search for Linda into her own hands. But with little to no information on where she was going for this shoot or who she would be with, it was hard to get started. After some time, there was a break in the case when modeling photos of her were found in a nearby national forest. This alone was obviously not enough information to push the case forward, but when another man called police to tell them that he had seen Linda on the day of her disappearance, that was enough to get things going, and this got them asking questions. That man, on the other line, was Charles Rathbun. Charles went on to tell the police that he was a photographer who had set up a meeting with Linda the day that she disappeared to look at her modeling portfolio and offer some advice on how to improve it. He claimed that they met at a local Denny's to do this and said that when their session was over, they went their separate ways. So let's discuss what we know about Charles Rathbun. At the time of this murder, he was 38 years old and seemed to be an aspiring photographer who is even said to be a nationally recognized photographer. He had booked a deal with Auto Week and had reached out to Linda himself to model for the magazine via a payphone. It seems the two of them had actually met before and had done a few gigs together prior to this shoot. It's also important to note here that he was on trial in Ohio for a former rape, but was eventually acquitted. With these two pieces of information, the photos found, and her last known location being Denny's, the police decided to check them both out. They went to the local Denny's that Charles and Linda had met at. Upon arrival, they found Linda's car still parked in the restaurant's lot. Additionally, they went to the park where her photos were found and checked the surrounding area. In a nearby trash can, they found a car rental agreement in Charles' name. After tracing the rental car down, they found traces of blood in the back seat. And this is where things slowly started to unravel for Charles. He called the police and claimed that he had a gun and was willing to kill himself. So, They rushed to his home, and when they arrived, he did fire his weapon. The bullet went awry and injured the deputy who was responding to the case. When they had him in custody, he admitted that he had rented a car and asked Linda to do a shoot with him in the desert that day. He said he wanted to photograph her, and the car was there for ambiance for Auto Week, and they wanted a scenic background. Charles also claimed that he was teaching Linda how to drive the car and to get some shots when he lost control of the vehicle, which resulted in her death. He then claims that he panicked and buried her body in the desert. He did, however, agree to show police where he buried her, which allowed them to find her body. Upon finding Linda's body, Charles' story started to not add up. The car he rented was not damaged at all. Definitely not damaged like it hit someone. So what really happened to Linda which caused her to die? Well, over a week passed since they found the body, and an autopsy finally came back with the results. Though there were many signs of sexual assault, there were no marks consistent with her being hit by a car. Upon further investigation, her cause of death was officially ruled strangulation. To be exact, they believe someone was sitting on her back, pushing her head up against something to cut off her air supply. They also found that she was intoxicated at the time of her death. Her blood alcohol level was almost double the legal limit. And this is odd because friends and family say that Linda was not a drinker. It was later revealed that he offered her $60 to chug tequila. So on November 24th, 1995, he was arrested, and almost a year went by before Charles was convicted of murder in the first degree. In the courtroom, he gave his account of Linda's last moments. He says he did accidentally asphyxiate her during an argument, but failed to explain the horrific sexual assault which likely involved the gun he was carrying at the time. The defense say that they were having sex while both were drunk, and she was accidentally strangled. They claim the sex was consensual, but sexual photos of her that he had taken in the car were also shown at trial, and they were used in the defense. Obviously, the jurors did not see it that way. This may be because when her body was found, she was bound by her ankles, which were almost rubbed raw. So Charles took the stand himself. He says they got into an argument in the car before they started doing donuts with it. He also says he did not actually run into her with the car, but just got close enough to scare her and make her fall back, which caused her to get a cut on her head. And then, he says, she threatened him and began to kick the car, so he grabbed her foot. He then pinned her down until she stopped moving. He says that he thought that she was faking being dead. He says, quote, playing possum. But when he realized that she wasn't, he got scared and tried to revive her. When he failed to do so, he tied her up and buried her, or so he claims. Just like the jury, the police did not think that this story was adding up. Actually, after hearing him recount the case, they noticed things that sounded very familiar, leading them to think he might be involved in more than just one murder. Linda's case seemed very alike to that of Kimberly Pedilos, who was also a model that was found dead in a California national park just a few years prior. She too was last seen doing a modeling job that involved a car and meeting up at a Denny's. Because of this, they confirmed that he was a person of interest in her case as well. Other models who had worked with him also came forward saying that they thought he was strange. They say he made sexual advances on them and often asked for sexual favors in exchange for photographs. They explained that he did not take no for an answer. Following this, he became a suspect in the murder of Stephanie Hummer in Columbus, Ohio. She was a student who disappeared and was found on March 7, 1994. Her cause of death was a blow to the head, say the police. They also said they think many of the links to Charles were speculation and they have not seen actual proof of his involvement. He was then linked to the murder of Rose Larner in Michigan, 1993. She too was a model that was last seen in the Delphi Township where Charles was living at the time. Judge Donald Pitts granted the jury's request to sentence him to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the death of Linda. A large factor in why he was not up for the death penalty is because he showed the police where her body was in the desert. Before the judge said the sentence, he said, quote, "Obviously, no one who has not endured the loss of a child can understand your grief or anger. Mr. Rathburn, I don't know if you realize the pain you've caused, first to Linda, then to her family." Unquote. Linda's father also stepped forward to say, quote, "I've never known what it was to despise someone like I despise this person. God will punish you, Charlie." Unquote. And hopefully, he does. That's it for this week. If you have a case you want covered or have thoughts on this week's episode, write into the show by DMing me on Instagram at Megan the Morning Podcast. Let me know if you think Charles was involved in the other cases as well. And I'll be back soon with another Hollywood true crime case.